The sound came first soft, sharp, and lonely. Tap, 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 something small hitting the surface of a frozen lake. It didn't belong in the quiet morning, and for a moment the forest seemed confused by it, as if unsure whether to answer or stay silent. A raven lifted its head from a branch and stared into the pale distance. A fox paused mid-step, nose twitching. Even the old pine trees, heavy with snow, seemed to lean closer, listening. Only one creature moved at the center of all that stillness, a tiny wolf pup with a coat the color of morning smoke. His paws, too big for his growing body, slipped slightly each time he leaned forward on the ice. He didn't notice. He was too busy exploring, too busy being young. The sun had barely risen, and pale gold light stretched across the frozen lake like a thin blanket. The cold air nipped gently at his ears, filling his lungs with sharpness, but he loved it. Everything was new. Everything was exciting. And this smooth, shining surface beneath his paws felt like a magical discovery he alone had made. Behind him, hidden by a curve of snow-covered land, the rest of his pack slept in a tight circle. Their breaths rose in soft clouds. Their bodies lay close together, guarding warmth in the heart of winter. The pup had slipped away before dawn, crawling out of the den when his mother shifted in her sleep. He thought she wouldn't miss him. He thought he would be back before anyone knew he was gone. He took another step onto the lake. The ice gave a low groan, like an old door complaining about being pushed open. The pup froze. His ears perked. His small yellow eyes widened. The sound frightened him, but just a little. Then he relaxed and tapped the ice again, this time with a playful bounce of his front paws. Tap, 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 a pattern, a game. He liked the way the sound echoed across the wide, empty lake. It made him feel powerful, like he was calling out to the world, high above. Ow. On a snowy ridge that overlooked the lake, another animal stirred. A huge brown bear pushed his way out of his den, blinking slowly at the bright morning light. The bear had slept through storms and long frozen nights. His long winter rest was ending, and now hunger hung in his belly like a heavy stone. He lifted his nose, breathing in the icy air, catching the scent of pine, frost, and distant wolves. His eyes drifted downward to the lake, where he spotted a small wiggling shape moving across the frozen surface. He didn't recognize exactly what it was from this distance, but he felt something tug inside him, an instinct, a tug of curiosity, maybe even a warning. Something about the scene felt wrong. The forest looked peaceful, yes. Silent, yes. But the bear's instincts were old, older than the snowfall, older than the trees. And they whispered to him that the ice was changing with the season, becoming softer, thinner, weaker. The bear watched the wolf pup play far below, his breath rising in slow, heavy clouds. He wasn't planning to hunt the pup. He wasn't even thinking of going down there. But the sight held him still, as if the forest itself had placed a great paw on his back and said, "Wait." Watch stopped back on the lake. The wolf pup grew bolder. He lowered his chin and sniffed the surface. The ice smelled cold, sharp, like broken stone. He pawed at a cluster of frost crystals, watching them scatter like tiny snow stars. A gust of wind swept across the lake, ruffling his fur and carrying with it the deep silence of winter, a silence that felt almost like a voice. He looked up, ears twitching. Nothing moved except a few flakes of snow drifting off the branches. The world felt calm, safe. He took another step, then another, leaving tiny paw prints across the smooth blue-white surface. The ice moaned again. Longer this time. He paused but didn't retreat. Below him, the water waited behind him. The forest held its breath. Far away, his mother lifted her head from her sleep. A faint sense pushed at her chest. Not a smell, but something deeper. She stood slowly, shaking snow from her back. Her golden eyes scanned the den entrance, then the forest beyond. Too quiet, too empty. She knew all her pups by heart, knew the rhythm of their breathing, their scent, their tiny movements. One was missing. She stepped out into the cold air, nose working fast. The trail was fresh, made only minutes ago. She followed it quickly, her paws pressing deep into the snow as worry rose through her like cold water filling her chest. The bear remained on the ridge, watching the tiny figure move farther onto the lake. Hunger pressed at him again, reminding him how long winter had lasted, but a stronger feeling held him in place. Something was shifting in the forest. Something important. He turned his head slightly as the faint sound of rushing footsteps reached his ears, the wolf mother moving toward the lake. The pup, unaware of everything watching him, continued exploring. He leaned down, licking the ice. The cold sting surprised him, and he jumped back with a tiny yelp, then barked at the lake as if scolding it. His tail wagged. His breath puffed in little clouds. He felt brave and wild and free. But beneath his paws, the ice had begun to spider with thin cracks. They spread silently, hidden under a dusting of new snow. Each step he took pushed the cracks farther out like white lightning frozen beneath his feet. The wind rose again. It carried with it the deep scent of something large bare, sent along with the sharp, anxious scent of his approaching mother. The pup lifted his nose and sniffed, confused. He sensed movement behind him, but didn't turn right away. He was too busy watching a trapped bubble move beneath the ice. Then another sound came. A low, trembling sound. Kirk! The pup's ears snapped forward. The ice trembled, and suddenly, he understood. He took a step back. Just one, but it was too late. The thin sheet beneath him sagged. The lake groaned louder. He felt the world shift under his paws. Far away, his mother saw him and broke into a sprint. Snow flew behind her as her heart slammed against her ribs. Up on the ridge, the bear rose to his full height, eyes locked on the tiny wolf in the center of the lake. For one long moment, no one breathed. Then the ice gave way. The pup slipped, scrambled, and vanished into the freezing water with a sharp splash that shattered the morning calm. Birds exploded into the air. The wolves howled in panic. The forest, once quiet and peaceful, erupted with sound. But even as chaos surged through the trees, the old bear was already stepping off the ridge because the story had begun, and the forest had chosen its players. The splash was still echoing across the frozen lake. When the world snapped into motion, the wolf pup's cry high, sharp, and full of terror cut through the morning like a blade. His tiny body vanished beneath the ice-cold water, swallowed by a darkness he had never known. He kicked wildly, trying to rise, but the water dragged at his fur and weighed down his limbs. When he reached the surface again, his nose broke through with a desperate gasp. The air burned colder than the water. His paws slapped against shattered ice, trying to find something solid, something that could hold his tiny weight. But every time he pressed down, the ice broke in under him like glass. He was trapped in a small circle of open water that grew wider with each frantic movement. Shards scraped his legs, leaving thin lines of pain across his skin. His teeth chattered. A whimper escaped him, soft, frightened, broken. The forest reacted instantly. Birds burst from the branches in a black storm of wings. A scattering of snow fell from pine boughs as if the trees themselves flinched. The mother wolf's howl tore through the valley, raw and trembling, a sound that carried both fear and fury. But she was still far from the lake's center, her paws sinking deep into snow as she raced across the frozen ground. She could see him now, her pup, her smallest one struggling against the lake's icy grip. Every stumble she took forward felt too slow. Every heartbeat felt like a lifetime. She barked to her pack, and they sprinted behind her, but the fear in their eyes showed they understood what she feared most. The ice might break beneath them. The pup's head dipped again. He kicked upward, but his movements were weaker now, slower. His breath came out in tiny clouds that vanished instantly. His ears lowered against his skull. He wasn't crying anymore. He was too cold for that. Then the ground trembled. A deep, heavy thud rolled across the snow. Then another. The mother wolf froze mid-step, stunned by the sound. The pack behind her pulled up sharply, their paws skidding against the ice-covered shore. The thuds grew louder, closer. The old brown bear tore down the snowy ridge with the speed no one expected from such a massive creature. Snow exploded behind him in a white spray. His breath came out in thick bursts of steam. His claws bit into the frozen earth with each charging step. He wasn't running away from the wolves, and he wasn't running toward them. He was running toward the lake, toward the pup. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Predator charging. Wolves watching. The forest breathless. Then the bear reached the lake's edge and didn't stop. He stepped onto the ice with a booming crack. The surface groaned, bending beneath his enormous weight. Snowflakes drifted off his fur. His eyes locked onto the tiny pup, barely staying afloat in the water's center. The mother wolf growled. But her voice was thin with desperation. She couldn't reach her pup. She couldn't cross the breaking ice. She didn't trust the bear. How could she? But something inside her recognized the strange truth of this moment. The bear was not attacking. He was not raising his head or baring his teeth. He was focused on the pup alone. The bear took another step. The ice beneath him dipped, then cracked in thick lines that shot outward like frozen lightning. He paused, shifting his weight, testing the strength of each new step. His instincts old and sharp guided him. Step slow. Distribute weight. Don't push too fast. Still. Every move he made sent painful waves through the broken ice around the pup. The pup managed to lift his head again. His eyes wide, glassy, full of cold, terror-locked onto the bear's towering shadow. He tried to paddle backward, but there was nowhere to go. His legs felt numb. His body shook uncontrollably. A quiet, hopeless whine slipped from his throat. The bear lowered his huge head, studying the pup. His eyes softened. Not human emotion, just instinct, some old spark of recognition for a young life in danger. He had once been small too, helpless, dependent, and in this frozen world, even a predator understood the meaning of a life that might end too soon. With a deep rumble in his chest, the bear lunged forward carefully but urgently. The ice beneath him shattered. Chunks flew sideways. Water burst upward in a violent spray. The wolves yelped in alarm. The mother wolf leaped forward instinctively, but stopped when the ice at her feet snapped in warning. The bear dropped to his knees in the freezing water. The shock hit him, biting through his thick fur and settling into his bones. But he didn't flinch. He pushed forward with his arms, breaking a larger path toward the struggling pup. The pup slipped underwater again. The world above him blurred into soft, warped shapes. Sound fell away, replaced by a deep, muffled silence. His chest burned. He opened his mouth, and icy water rushed in. His tiny body drifted downward. His eyes fluttered then. Faintly through the dark water, he saw something move, a huge shadow, pressing into the lake. Reaching out the bear, the pup kicked weakly, rising just enough for his nose to break the surface again. He gasped, coughing, shivering violently. His ears barely lifted. The bear reached out with one massive paw, claws curled inward to avoid hurting the pup. He pushed a floating slab of ice closer, forcing it under the pup's belly. The pup slipped off. The bear tried again. The water churned. The ice shifted. The bear growled in frustration, a deep sound that vibrated through the lake. The mother wolf cried out, pacing the edge, powerless. Finally, the bear lowered his entire shoulder beneath the water, lifting the pup with the gentle rise of his body. The pup slid forward, rolling onto a thicker piece of ice. His paws scrabbled weakly. His body trembled so violently the ice shook beneath him. The bear kept pushing, guiding the ice sheet toward the wolves with slow, careful movements. Each push cost him energy. Each push risked pulling him deeper into the frozen water. The wolves watched with wide, stunned eyes. Everything they had been taught about predators fell apart in that moment. This bear, this massive creature who could silence a wolf with a single swipe, was saving one instead. When the ice carrying the pup reached the edge, the mother wolf pulled him onto solid snow with trembling jaws. She pressed her nose against his wet fur, nuzzling him, warming him, checking his breathing. His tiny chest rose and fell, weak but alive. She looked up at the bear. For a moment, predator and mother locked eyes. There were no growls. No fear, no threat. only a quiet understanding. The bear backed away slowly, dripping water, his breath heavy but calm. Snowflakes began to fall again, soft and slow, settling on his fur like tiny stars. Behind him, the lake stilled. Behind her, the pup breathed, and for the first time all morning, the forest exhaled. For a long moment, the world seemed frozen in place. The lake no longer moved, the sky held its breath, and even the trees stood silent as the bear remained half submerged in the icy water, his massive shoulders trembling under the cold. Only the wolf pup moved, barely shivering against a slab of wet ice that floated toward the shore. His breaths were shallow, almost too soft to hear, but they were still there. Still fighting? The bear's great paw rose again, slow and careful, as if he understood how fragile the life in front of him was. His claws, sharp enough to slice through bark and bone, reached for the ice just beyond the pup. Instead of striking, he pressed down in a controlled, almost delicate motion. The ice cracked outward in a curved line, steering the floating piece like a small boat. The water surged, pushing the pup closer to the wolves waiting on the edge. Each push cost the bear a little more strength. His heavy fur soaked up freezing water, dragging him deeper. His breath grew ragged, coming out in bursts of pale steam. But he did not stop. Something ancient guided him, some instinct older than hunger, older than fear. A simple truth. A young life should not end this way. The mother wolf paced the shoreline, her paws shifting with nervous energy. She whined softly, her tail trembling, her eyes locked on her pup. Her instinct screamed at her to rush forward, to swim, to bite through the ice. If she had to, but she knew the water was too cold, too strong. She could only watch, only wait. When the slab of ice finally drifted close enough, she lunged forward and grabbed the pup by the loose fur at the back of his neck. His tiny body flopped into her hold limp, cold, barely conscious. She pulled him onto the snow, wrapping her body around him as quickly as she could. Her warmth covered him like a protective blanket. She licked his face and ears non-stop, as if trying to breathe life back into him. The pack gathered tighter around them, forming a trembling circle of fur, breath, and worry. Their eyes flicked from the pup to the bear, unsure of what to do next. Fear still existed. Fear of the giant animal standing in the freezing water, but it mixed now with something else. Something quieter. Something that tasted like respect. The bear backed away from the broken ice, moving slowly, each step heavy with exhaustion. The lake groaned under him, but he managed to reach solid ice, then the snow-covered shore. His fur dripped, sending thin rivers of meltwater across the ground. He stopped for a moment, his head lowered, his chest rising and falling like a drum. He didn't look at the wolves. He didn't need to. He turned to leave. The mother wolf lifted her head, watching him. Her ears were still flat, but she didn't growl. She didn't bare her teeth. She simply looked at him with a gaze that carried fear. Yes, but also a kind of fragile gratitude. She understood that her pup lived because of this creature, and the bear understood it too. The pack remained still as the bear walked between them and the trees. Snowflakes began to fall again, drifting through the quiet air like soft feathers. They landed on the bear's back, melting slowly into his shaking fur. He did not look back. He simply moved deeper into the forest, swallowed by shadows and snowfall. When the bear was finally gone, the forest let out a long, slow exhale, as if a storm had just passed. The mother wolf pressed her nose into her pup's neck, breathing in the faint scent of his fur. His body quivered against her. His eyes fluttered. A small sound escaped him, a squeak so weak it barely counted as a whine. But it was enough. It was life. The wolves around them relaxed slightly, their tails lowered, their shoulders eased. One of the older wolves nudged the pup gently, as if reminding him he wasn't alone. Another licked his forehead. Pack instincts ran deep. Protect the young, protect each other. The pup's breathing slowly grew stronger. His small chest rose in steadier waves. His trembling eased as his mother's warmth sank into his frozen skin. She curled her body around him, forming a shelter with her legs, fur, and heartbeat. His eyes opened halfway, just enough to see the snowy world around him, and then closed again. Minutes passed like this. Quiet, still, healing. The snow thickened, painting the broken lake in soft white. The cracks made by the bear smoothed over as flakes settled gently into them, covering the dark scars with a pale blanket. It almost looked as if the lake were trying to hide what had happened, trying to mend itself. Just like the small pup resting against his mother, the forest grew calm. Birds returned to the branches, rustling their wings softly. Somewhere far off, the soft hoot of an owl drifted through the air, slow and thoughtful. Wolves don't cry tears like humans do, but emotion still lived in their eyes. In their breath, in the way they pressed close around the young pup. Their relief filled the clearing like a warm light. As the pup's strength slowly returned, he lifted his head for a moment. His gaze drifted toward the trees where the bear had vanished. He didn't understand what had happened, not fully. But animals know kindness when they feel it. And in his tired eyes, a soft spark of recognition flickered. The world, cold as it was, still held surprises. His mother nudged him gently back into her fur. He curled into her warmth and let out one long, tired breath. The pack closed tighter around them, body heat rising like a shield, protecting him from the last fingers of winter's cold. Above them, the snow continued to fall, smoothing the ground into a clean, quiet world. The lake shimmered under its fresh blanket, as if nothing had ever broken its surface. The trees stood tall and watchful, their branches heavy with white, and somewhere deep among the pines, the bear walked alone, disappearing into the peaceful forest he had just helped save in that silent moment. The forest whispered a quiet truth, one older than wolves, older than bears, older than winter itself. Sometimes survival doesn't come from strength or speed. Sometimes it comes from unexpected kindness. Even in the coldest of places,